Mr. Leong here, talking about topic 1.9, comparing distributions of a quantitative variable. So in this video, we're going to discuss how to compare graphs for two or more sets of quantitative data or to compare their summary statistics. So I'm just going to give you a tip for the AP exam, and then we'll go through an example where we do some comparison. So on the AP exam, if you ever are asked to compare two or more sets of quantitative data, you must be sure to address CUS. That's center, unusual features, shape, and spread. Because you're comparing, you have to explicitly use phrases like greater than, less than, similar to, different from. So that way the reader or the grader knows that you're comparing rather than just, writing out a laundry list of what you see. You have to actually compare one characteristic to another. And then you must always include context. And that's true for pretty much all AP Stats problems, right? If you don't include context or the setting in which the problem is about, you will generally get only partial credit for your work. All right, so let's go to here. All right, in this, I'm using Statlet.com, by the way. So I've entered some data about ratings for tablets. Okay, so the two big players in the tablet industry are Apple and Samsung. Okay, so Apple has their, iPad models, and Samsung has their tablets as well. And so there's a publication called Consumer Reports, and they basically test out products and give them ratings. I believe it's a 100-point scale. So I have all these ratings for Apple tablets and then a bunch of ratings for Samsung tablets. And so we want to compare the ratings for these two brands. So my first advice was to use CUS. So let's first talk about center. Okay. So in a box plot, by the way, box plots are great graphs to use to compare because we have the median, which is a quick way to compare the center. We have the IQR, right, or the width of the box, which is a way to discuss spread. We can look at the tails to see if there's skewness, right? So that will address shape. And then outliers should be revealed by either some sort of asterisk or a dot. So a box plot is really built to touch on all four of those characteristics. All right, so here we go. So we can first off say that the median rating for Apple tablets is slightly greater than the median rating for a Samsung tablet, right? 84 versus 83. All right, so notice I said it's only slightly greater, so that emphasizes that it's not a big difference, right? You can say that they're pretty similar, right? Their median ratings are only 1 point apart. All right, so this means that a typical tablet from Apple will have about the same or slightly greater rating than a typical tablet from Samsung. All right, so then let's talk about unusual features. Okay, so among the Apple tablets, there are two tablets that got, relatively speaking, lower scores compared to the rest of that brand. And then Samsung doesn't have any outliers. Okay, so just mentioning these two Apple tablets as being rated unusually low. Next is shape. So we can see that the box plot for Apple tablets has a long whisker or tail on the left, so that indicates some skewness to the left, and the same thing for the Samsung box plot as well. Okay. So both brands tend to have ratings that are skewed to the left. Okay. So what that means is, most of the ratings are kind of piled up here on the higher side, and all the low ratings are much more spread out. All right, finally we get to spread. So use the IQR to discuss spread. Okay. So we can see that the ratings for typical Apple tablets are much more consistent, right? They all fall between 83 to 86, right? So that's an IQR of 3 points, okay? Whereas there's a lot more variation in the ratings of your typical Samsung tablets, right? The wider box indicates a larger IQR, right? So typical Samsung tablets rate between 75 to 86, right? So that's an 11-point difference, right? Much more variation, and then the Apple tablets, which show a lot more consistency in their ratings. Okay. So you notice that I'm not using the overall range to discuss spread because that's not reliable, especially when there's outliers. It's best to use the IQR. Okay. All right, so we've discussed the 4 characteristics, CUS. We made sure that we used phrases that indicated we're actually comparing. And we used context, right? Whenever I was discussing things, I was referring to the brands, referring to the ratings, referring to the fact that these are tablets. Now, we specifically use box plots for this comparison, but let's see if we can glean any more information from looking at other types of graphs. So let's take a look at a histogram. Okay, and so the histogram seems to confirm the skewness, right? So the ratings for Apple tablets show left skewness, right, tail to the left, and the ratings for Samsung show left skewness as well. It does look like maybe we could have described it as bimodal, right? There being 2 peaks, right? So maybe we have like, the top end tablets from Samsung, and maybe these are lower end, cheaper entry level models from Samsung. Apple tends to be just a high end brand, which is maybe why we only see a single peak. Let's look at dot plots. Okay, so again, you see that the ratings for Apple are skewed to the left, got the long tail to the left. The ratings for Samsung, right? Now we're seeing something we didn't see in the other graphs, right? We're seeing this big gap in clusters, right? Which seems to confirm that, maybe there's subgroups within the Samsung tablets, right? And I'm just hypothesizing, I don't know a whole lot, but, maybe these are the higher end models and maybe these are the lower end entry models, right? So certain graphs will give you more or less information than others. A good place to start though, like I said, is with box plots, because it makes it very easy to compare center with the median, shape, look at the tails, unusual features, look for outliers, and spread, look at the IQR, right, the width of the box.